Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how if-else statements work. Now this is core functionality for every program. This is what makes your program smart, as opposed to just a whole series of commands doing one after another. But I find a lot of students can get confused in a couple areas. So I just want to demonstrate a simple use of this. And usually you use these after we've gotten some input from a user. So I'm going to start off by making a variable, and I'm going to call it user response is equal to, and I'm going to say, actually I'm going to make it equal to prompt. Now prompt's a typical way we get a response from the user. In JavaScript, there's a pop-up box with an input text area, and they can put a response in. So prompt, pick a number between 1 and 10. And so we've got a response from them, and I'm going to start with a really simple example of an if statement. I'm just going to see if the number they pick is my favorite number or not. So if user response is equal to, and remember we're using 3 equal signs because when we're wanting to compare the value of this variable, whatever they type, with, we want to see if it equals 7, we need to use 3. 2 if we just want to check the value, 3 if we want to check that the value and the data type are the same. And I can't just put 7 here. I could do that, but it's not going to give us the response we're looking for. And that's because by default, when we do a prompt, it returns the data type of a string, not a number. Even if they do type the number 7 into that box, it's going to return the string 7. So if we want to check if what they entered is 7, we would have to do this, at least for now, without doing anything to the variable. So if the user response is equal to 7, then I'm going to do an alert. That's my favorite number 2. Else, I'm going to alert. That's good for you. I like 7. Okay, so very, very simple. Let's test it out. Pick a number between 1 and 10, and if they put 7, that's my favorite number 2. If I refresh that and I pick something like 4, that's good for you, I like 7. Now that's really simple. Now a typical way though, we're wanting them to put a number between 1 and 10. So let's use an if statement to check if they've actually done that first. Okay, so I'm going to put another if statement in front and go if user response, and now I want to see if it's in that range. To check if it's less than something or greater than something, now we were expecting it to be an actual number, not a string. We can't do that when user response is a string. So let's change that. Let's make user response equal to parse int user response. And what that does is it parses it into an integer, converts it into an integer. So it's no longer a string. We can now check if user response is outside that range. So let's say if it's less than 1, or 2 vertical lines is or user response is greater than 10. So it's outside of that range of 1 to 10. Then we're going to alert you didn't enter a number between 1 and 10. Please try again. And that's typical of a lot of programs. You're expecting a certain response. If the user doesn't follow those, you want to let them know and say, hey, that's not allowed. Else, assuming they are in that range, now we can go through the rest of our if statements. And so these are actually nested if statements, and you can have as many layers as you like. This is 2 layers. One thing that I see a lot of students doing is they'll put a condition on the else. So for instance, they'll think that they have to go, oh, if it's not equal to 7, then alert, that's good for you, I like 7. But that's going to give you an error, because else is a catch-all for everything else, everything other than what is allowed in the if part. And now because we made user response equal an integer, we can actually take these quotation marks off, because we're not checking if it's equal to the string, we're checking if it's equal to the number or the integer 7. Okay, so now we check it, and let's say we go 0, you didn't enter a number between 1 and 10, or if we go above 10, no, but if we go in between, then we're doing our original if statement. Okay, and that's the basics of how if statements work. Well, I'll just say one last thing, and that's in the if statement, it's checking if what's between these brackets, opening and closing, we're checking to see if that is true. If it's true, then it's going to do whatever's inside. If it's not true, it's going to skip this whole section of code and do in the what's in the else. Or if you only have an if, then it won't run anything at all. Okay, in this case, it checks first if user response is less than 1 or user response is greater than 10. And as we know from our Boolean logic, with an or, it only needs one side to be true in order for the whole thing to be true. And then it will do this. All right, and that's it for this lesson. Thank you.